When I was in 4th grade, I loved the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark series, like most kids that age. They were in high demand at my school's library, so it was a miracle when I could even get a hold of one. They were the scariest thing ever to 10-year-old me. So naturally, when I heard there was a movie coming out, I was hyped. They were finally adapting these stories known for their creepy ass pictures to the big screen. How are they going to do everyone's childhood justice? Well, they didn't. I'm about to dive into the reasons why this movie failed and why it's not a good adaptation. Now, I know from the beginning they didn't want to make an anthology out of it. The books are a series of scary stories that don't connect in any way, so making it into an anthology movie where the stories don't connect would be kind of pointless. People could just read the books and get the same experience. They wanted to have a narrative that connected a lot of the stories. That makes sense. But I don't think the execution was so great. Let's talk about the setting. This movie takes place during the 1960s, but I feel like it really wants to take place during the 80s. So, stop me if you've heard this one before. Let me know if this movie sounds just a little bit familiar. The main characters in this use walkie-talkies and ride around on their bikes, investigating monsters and other weird things happening in their small town. Their group is mostly made up of nerds, and they have to find out how to stop a mysterious supernatural enemy before it destroys them or their town first. So, it can't take place during the 80s. It really can't even take place during this current time. It's already similar to another movie. So, they have to justify it taking place during the 60s. What happened in that time? Oh, I know. The Vietnam War. The Vietnam War is an overarching thing in this movie. It doesn't really add to what the movie is trying to do. I mean, it's there so it can give more of a backstory to this character, I guess. This focus on war and politics feels so out of place in a horror movie. It's such an odd choice to focus on Richard Nixon and the Vietnam War throughout the movie, while there's a fat ghost lady, a zombie with a missing big toe who can somehow walk, an evil scarecrow, and a monster who can put himself back together. I mean, what are the characters supposed to be more afraid of? I genuinely don't know. Not to mention, making this movie specifically tie into the 60s kind of defeats the whole gimmick of the original stories. The movie says this, and this sums them up pretty well. These scary stories are remembered because every generation retells and relives them throughout the decades to come. They're supposed to be timeless, but this movie insists on anchoring itself to the 1960s specifically. I really didn't get anything out of this aspect. The other problem I had with the story was how they handled the scary stories themselves. They made their author the ghost of a woman who was supposedly crazy. They gave her a backstory. Her family helped found the town that the main characters live in, and she was kept a secret due to their own twisted values. They did some shady things. She was put through 20th century mental asylum treatment before she died, thus making her into a revenge-filled person or ghost. In the end, the main girl agrees to tell the story of what really happened to this lady while she was alive, and gets her to stop summoning these monsters. I just feel like having a ghost writing these stories is just too generic of an idea. I enjoy horror movies when there is no easy explanation for the bad guys. Take Halloween. Michael Myers is terrifying because he's just pure evil. He has no reasoning for killing people. You can't kill him. You can't talk to him, so there's no way to understand what goes on in his mind, and that's why he's so scary. When you try to explain a horror movie villain, and even successfully talk to them, and get them to stop what they're doing, it makes everything far less scary. Oh, the ghost isn't really a bad person. She was just abused by her family and wanted revenge. She was only mean because of how she was raised. Again, I feel like this edition just kind of took away from what these stories are supposed to be. They're supposed to be folktales that are just passed down from generation to generation. You know what I would have enjoyed more? If the kids had stumbled across a supernatural book in the old abandoned house. The book is full of scary stories, and no one knows who wrote them. Then after stuff starts to happen, they do some research and realize that these same things have happened before in the town's history. The monsters are driven by people's fear of them, and this fear gets reignited every single generation. The kids learn to overcome their fear and thus defeat these monsters because they realize that people giving them power is what keeps them going. It would actually have more of an interesting theme if they went that direction. The ghost controlling everything just isn't that interesting. And the movie ends with the other two nerds still missing and or dead after their encounters with the monsters. So I guess it's trying to set up for a sequel. The main character thinks they can bring them back somehow by using the magic book. I don't know how y'all are going to explain that to their parents. I don't feel like there's anything pulling me back to watch the sequel. It's not even that there's a ton of things wrong with this movie. I just really wasn't that entertained. A lot of it was kind of predictable. I feel like I've seen a lot of these things happen in movies before. I mean, it's rare to sort of kill your main character, so that's an interesting choice. I give this movie 2.5 out of 5 stars. I think as a horror movie it was decent enough, but I didn't enjoy it as an adaptation. I think a big part of the marketing was just banking on your childhood nostalgia, so I feel like it wanted to be seen as an adaptation, so I'm critiquing it as such. I was expecting something different than what we got. I will say this, the design of the monsters is great. Their looks are updated a little bit, but for the most part, they're straight from the books. I don't think this movie is terrible, just disappointing. For one example, the original ending to Harold was far better than this. Although I guess Billy Hargrove, Tommy deserved it. Sorry, I keep getting these small town bully characters mixed up. I love how he tries to fight Harold with a pitchfork, and then Harold's just all like,
"You should have gone for the head."
The scares were good. The whole thing involving the pale lady was pretty good, considering she's probably the one everybody's scared of the most. I guess this movie kind of underwhelmed me, but some people might have liked it a lot. And that's okay. Thanks for watching if you made it this far. Join me next time when I talk about another exceptional horror movie. It's hard for me to really choose which one to talk about. We've had so many brilliant, groundbreaking, breathtaking cinematic masterpieces in this year alone. Till next time, y'all.